So how does parallel realities and reincarnation, how do they go together? Because then that doesn't make sense to me.
Yeah, it makes sense when you understand that reincarnation is something that's happening within the soul. It's not a soul going from place to place. From physical space-time perspective, a linear space-time perspective, it is experienced as if it's a memory. That's why we think of it as the past and the future. And we have past lives and future lives and present lives. But everything exists right now. Everything exists at the same time. So you're making energetic connections to other people that coexist at the same time you do. In a parallel reality, we label the past, but they still exist. It's just that when we make those energy connections for our own reasons, and we download experience and information from those people's experience, we interpret that as a memory of having lived that life. But it's all happening in the present. This is why you get that old idea of, 50 different people say they were Cleopatra. Well, that's only possible if Cleopatra exists at the same time we all do, and 50 people, for whatever reason, identify strongly with what she represents and connect to her energetically at the same time. But they're interpreting that as a memory of, I was Cleopatra, or I was Julius Caesar. What they're actually saying is, I'm connecting to Cleopatra, I'm connecting to Julius Caesar, and I'm downloading experience and information from that person's life that's going on at the same time mine is, but I'm interpreting that as a memory, therefore it must have happened to me. But that's not the case. That's the effect. So reincarnation and past life memories are an effect, but the actual mechanism is that everything exists and everyone exists right now. And the reason that we have that experience of reincarnation is because we interpret that connection as a memory. Because of space and time, the way we view reality from a linear perspective. Does that help?
Yes, it helps. You explain it so well. I'm just fascinated.
I've had a lot of practice.
Yeah. I want to jump over to Bashar's teachings that I find very powerful. And he says, follow your passion, and I'm all about following my passion. And when I started doing that, my life just became wonderful, to be honest.
Yeah. Me too.
Yeah. Let me ask that first. How has Bashar's teaching changed your life?
Oh, well, much in the same way. I mean, the amount of synchronicity that happens in my life is stunning. My, emotional balance is better after applying his information. Things get more effortless, more creativity in my life, more joy. It's just smoother. It's like there's less effort. Of course, there are challenges, but it's more fun. It's not like a struggle. There's no striving in that sense, no struggling. It's more like curiosity, like, what's the next challenge? What am I going to discover? What am I going to learn? How is this going to pull me forward? So it's complete attitude change and a complete experiential change of how you experience your life and everything and everyone in it. You look at things from a very different perspective. You understand things from another point of view, and it's very beneficial. Things work more easily because you understand how things work, because that's what he's explaining. This is how you create your reality. This is what it's based on. He's literally handing us an instruction manual. You follow the simple steps in the instruction manual, everything works as advertised to your benefit. You don't follow it, things may work, but it may not be to your benefit because you're not aware of what you're doing and how you're creating your experiences in life. But with the formula, as he calls it, with the instruction manual, he breaks it down to, look, this is what you're already doing. Just become more conscious of the fact that you're doing it this way. This is how it works. This is what you need to know. And when you apply it in your physical reality, you get the effect. You get the difference. And this is why it's so important, and what I always tell people, you don't have to believe that Bashar is real. This could be coming from another level of my own consciousness, this information. The proof is the information itself. The information actually does make a difference. It does cause an effect in your physical life. So that's the most important thing to focus on. Not, is it really coming from an ET? Is it coming from the channel's own higher consciousness? Is it coming from a spirit guide? That doesn't matter. What matters is the information is beneficial, constructive, creative. It allows us to be self-empowered and exercise our free will to choose. And it actually creates a different form of experience in your physical reality. To me, that's all the proof I need, is you get a different effect by actually applying this.
What does he say about us planning perhaps our lives, having certain destiny points, contracts, people to meet, and also to experience, for instance, oh, I'm going to learn about forgiveness, or I'm going to learn about lack of self-love.
Yes, we do lay that all out as spirits before we have the physical experience. Now, there is still free will about how you go about experiencing that you've laid out for yourself. So it's like you use your free will as a spirit to lay out a destiny, so to speak, for your physical mind, your physical experience. And so your physical being has to go through that. So you can look at that as destiny, but that was created by the free will of your spirit. Now, as the physical person, you have the free will to decide how to go through that. So let's say that your destiny is like a hallway. Your spirit has said, you will walk down this hallway as you. This is you, you're unique. You can't do it in any other way other than doing it as you, this physical person. But how you do it is up to you. You can be happy, you can be sad, you can run, you can walk, you can crawl, you can go fast, you can go slow. You can look in every door down the hallway, you can ignore them all and try to go straight to the end. But you will walk down that hallway. That's your life path. So it's up to you with your free will to decide how you're going to experience that hallway, how you will experience the life path, the speed at which you do it, the scale, the scope of how things happen, what you're willing to plug into, what you're willing to unplug from. So you have a lot of leeway in how you experience what the soul has laid out, but it's still you. You're still the soul. This is what you agreed to experience. This is what you chose to experience in general. And it's about what you learn from it, what you make of it, how you transform the challenges that come into your life that are representative of what the soul chose to experience for its own growth, its own expansion. So you have to work hand in hand with that.
So if I create my own reality, can I create another hallway if I want? Can I change it completely because
No,
I have the power? I can't.
you would be a different person.
Ah.
So anything that you're experiencing in this life that you do appear to transform or change is part of your life path. You can't experience it if it's not part of your life path.
Okay, so it's within my potential as Janike's
Yes.
life path.
Because
Okay.
that's the whole idea of the challenge. What are you challenging yourself to do? Go beyond the parameters you set up for yourself. Go beyond what you think is possible. So that's part of your life path, is to expand beyond the challenges that present themselves to you.
Right. And
So yeah, you don't have to have a different life path to experience that. That is part of your life path.
yeah, that makes sense to me. And Bashar speaks about changing your beliefs about yourself. And I find some beliefs have been easier to change than others.
That's
And
a belief.
yeah.
That's a belief. See, that's one of the challenges, is to watch the definitions about, because he's saying there's no such thing as a difficult situation. It's our beliefs and definitions that make it difficult. So when you say some things are more difficult than others, that is something you have been trained to buy into as a belief. That's something to overcome, is to understand, yes, I understand one thing may seem more challenging than another because that's the challenge we've set up for ourselves specifically to transform. But that doesn't mean it has to be harder to change. It just means that there may be an additional process for us to go through to understand how to change it. But that doesn't make it difficult. that just makes it deeper. It
Mm.
takes a deeper understanding to transform that thing as opposed to transforming something else. But we don't need to translate that as difficulty. We can translate that as, okay, this is something that's teaching me a lesson that's really valuable. So you can look at it as difficult, or you can look at it as more valuable. And that's why it takes more process to go through it, because it's more enriching, it's deeper, it's something that's profound in your life as a challenge, as opposed to some other challenges that may be smaller or may not seem like challenges at all. So rather than defining the bigger ones as difficult, it's probably easier to define them. It will become easier to experience them if you define them as more enriching, more
Mm.
valuable, more
Right.
the lesson for you to expand,
Yeah,
to grow.
that's very helpful.
Mm.
Now, I observe, maybe you do that as well, that it seems like many people are constantly escaping and running away from things, and that we humans suffer from this void inside, and we want to fill it up
Mhm.
with things, too much
Yeah.
work, alcohol, drugs. What is this feeling of emptiness? Is that the separation
Well,
from
it's
who
the
we really are?
experience. Yeah, it's the experience of separation. You can't be disconnected from source. You wouldn't exist. So it's the experience we have created that we seem to be separate. That's part of the illusion. So it comes from having to sort of forget who we are in order to rediscover who we are from a new point of view. That's how things grow. That's how creation expands, because the structure of existence never changes. What changes is your relationship to it, your experience of it, your perspective of it. So we have to kind of forget what we were as infinite souls in order to limit and focus ourselves into this physical personality version of ourselves that gets to experience the process of creation, the process of discovery, the new perspective of discovering something about ourselves from another point of view. And that's how creation expands. So sometimes, because of the nature of that focus, the depth of that focus, we can forget who we are to such an extreme that we actually can start experiencing sensations like we're totally disconnected. We have no connection to source. We're alone. And that starts going into things like we're not worthy, we're not valuable, we're not deserving, all of those negative ideas. Because remember, the universe basically is based on love or fear. These are the opposites. Love and hate are not opposites. Love and fear are the opposites. And that's the positive and the negative. Now, it's all ultimately based on love, but the idea is the negative side of it, fear, is what feels like the absence of that love. You're never actually disconnected. You have to be connected to create an experience of disconnection. That's the irony. That's the paradox of it. So it's up to us to understand that we have created this focus for the actual purpose of rediscovering who we are, reconnecting, so to speak, even though we are connected, but rediscovering that connection from a new point of view. We're actually totally indestructible beings. Our souls are indestructible. They're infinite, but as physical personalities, we're exploring something that helps round out the soul, that helps engage the soul, it helps enrich the soul, it helps the soul understand itself in a new way, from a new point of view, and it expands it in that way. So we have to understand the paradox that there's really nothing missing within us, but we can create the experience as if there is. And then if we don't really have the toolkit to understand how to address that properly in a positive way, then yeah, we try to fill that hole, that emptiness, with things that never actually work. That's the source of addiction. Or we're trying to numb over that emptiness so we don't have to face it. That's where fear comes in, because we're afraid to look at ourselves, because we're afraid that if we actually dig down deep and look at ourselves, we're going to find out that it's true that we're not worthy. It's true that we're not deserving. That will never actually be true. But that's the fear that comes with it. And you have to understand also how belief systems work, because in order to have a physical experience, you have to buy into certain beliefs being real. There are positive beliefs and there are negative beliefs. We don't have a problem with the positive ones because they reinforce themselves and perpetuate themselves in positive ways. But the negative beliefs, by definition, have to perpetuate themselves so you continue to have a physical experience. But they perpetuate themselves just like the positive ones do, but they do it in negative ways. So negative beliefs, in order to make sure you don't let them go, will amp up the fear so that you will continue to hold on to them. You have to see through that as simply a story that we're being told to perpetuate our physical reality experience, but that we don't have to buy into the story that the negative belief is telling us. We can actually start going into the story that the positive beliefs are telling us, and it's just as real. See, that's one of the negative beliefs we have, is that what the positive side says is not as real as what the negative side says, right? That's what we're saying. Oh, I'm a realist. I know that things can go sour at any minute, and therefore I have to make sure I'm protected, and all this. And so you sort of armor yourself up, and you're not actually necessarily really living life to the fullest in the way that you could, because you're so afraid that something bad's going to happen. You're afraid to move forward. So you have to be careful to balance the idea out in ways where you can use the negative beliefs to overcome them, to transform them in ways that allow you to move forward in a positive way. So this is sort of, again, getting into how this psychology works, how motivation works, the mechanisms of consciousness, the mechanisms of the physical mind. This is one of the things I really enjoy about what Bashar does, is he explains these so well as actual mechanisms, so that once you get a handle in your head on, oh, that's a mechanism and here's how it works, now I understand how I can use that mechanism in a more positive way, because there's no difference to the universe whether you decide to experience positive or negative energy. The universe doesn't have a mind of its own. Creation doesn't have a mind of its own. You are its mind. You are its expression. So it's saying, hey, I'm going to support you unconditionally. If you want to go down a negative path, I am going to support you unconditionally by reinforcing that negativity. If you want to go down a positive path, I'm going to support you unconditionally by reinforcing the positive side. It doesn't take sides. You're the one in charge.
Right. Wow. Wow, incredible. Thank you so much. It's so concrete. It's so tangible, I feel like, because sometimes these teachings confuse me, but
yeah, well, that's what I like about him, is he takes these things that have been for a long time very ambiguous and nebulous sort of concepts that are sort of left out there. I mean, yeah, you've heard, follow your bliss, act on your passion, but why? Why does that work? The thing I appreciate about Bashar's information is he explains it mechanically. That's why it works. This is how it works. So when he does that, then you have a deeper understanding as, oh, now that makes sense. Now I understand why people are always instinctively saying that, but I never understood why that actually made sense, or why it physically makes a difference in my life. He's explaining how it physically works. So then you've got a toolkit that you can use and apply in a very practical, grounded, down-to-earth way. No pun intended.
I'm curious, do you listen to other channelers, and do you find sometimes contradictions between teachings, or is it just truth from a different perspective?
Usually it's truth from a different perspective. And sometimes what seems like a contradiction isn't really a contradiction when you understand the underlying concept behind it, and you will realize it's just being expressed in a very different way, using different terminology, different language, because people need to hear things in different ways because of the way that they're brought up. Now, sometimes there can be contradictions, and that could be simply an error in the channeling. It could be a glitch. It could be the channel's personality kind of getting in the way momentarily, depending upon their skill level at bringing things through and what they're connecting to. It can be for a variety of reasons. And you have to kind of take it on a case-by-case basis. So, it's always about, does the information work for you? You can always take the parts of it that work and leave the parts that don't work for you behind. You get to decide that. So it's like looking at a menu. You don't have to order everything on the menu. You can order what you want. So when you hear any source of information, including Bashar's, you decide, yeah, that sounds good to me. That works for me. And this other part right now, I can't wrap my mind around it. It doesn't make sense to me. You can leave that behind. Remember, there's no hurry about this. You're an infinite, eternal spirit. What's your rush? You're going to be around forever. You're going to be able to always have a second chance to learn something, to decide what works and what doesn't work. You are always going to have that experience again and again and again and again. It never ends. It never ends. So there's no hurry to it. There's no rush. You don't have to like get everything, all your ducks in a row right now. But, the more you do, the better off you are. But it's up to you to decide that. It's not up to anyone else. That's why Bashar says, look, I'm sharing this information with you all. What you do with it is none of my business, because I'm just telling you, here's some options. These things work for us. We know they can work for you, but you have to be the one to decide that and apply them, because we're not telling you what your life path is. You've already decided that. So if some of this information works for you, use it. If it doesn't, don't. That's completely in your hands. I'm not telling you what to do. I'm giving you options. You get to decide whether or not you want to use them. So
I like that. What is the deepest spiritual insights that Bashar has given you about the nature of reality?
Well, it's our creation. We are creating this by consensus, by agreement to have a certain experience. We're playing by certain rules because that's the game we're playing. We wanted to do this as part of the expansion of existence. We're all aspects and reflections of all that is, of God, Goddess, all that is, whatever you want to call it. It doesn't care what you call it, because anything you could call it is still referring to it, whatever you want to say that is. So again, it's unconditional. I think a lot of people really need to look that word up, unconditional, instead of saying, oh yeah, it's unconditional, except for these conditions. No, there are no conditions. There's no judgment. It's up to you to decide what you want to experience as a soul, and you get to choose different things all the time. So no matter what state you're in, physical, non-physical, you still have free will. You still get to choose. I think that's kind of one of the most profound things. Our greatest power is the power to choose what we want to experience next. Now, we can have guidance. We have councils, we have soul families, we have spirit guides, we have angelic beings, we have all these beings we can consult with. But ultimately, the decision is each and every one of ours. We get to decide what it is we are all about, what reflection of all that is we are, and what we want to experience. And that freedom never goes away. So I think that's pretty profound.
Beautiful. You may have answered it, but what is the most important message that Bashar has, especially now in 2024?
Well, it is about acting on your passion. And there are several things that go along with that. That's not just left out. There are like 5 steps. So, but the idea is to understand why that's important. So we have this physical mind, but we also have the non-physical higher mind, which is basically the soul that we are. The soul attempts to communicate to the physical mind to guide it. But the soul speaks in a language of energy. It sends energy as a message. Our physical bodies translate that energy message as the sensation we call passion, excitement, attractiveness, curiosity, love, creativity. That's how we translate the message from the soul, saying, look, this opportunity that has arrived in your life that contains a lot of passion, or more passion than anything else, more excitement than anything else, even just a little bit more, I'm telling you that's your next step. That's why it comes with passion. That's why you have that feeling toward it. This is the next step to act on. This is the next step to take on your path. That's your guidance. That's the beacon to follow, is that sensation. So when you follow it, when you act on it, you are responding to the soul's message, saying, okay, I heard you. Thank you for your guidance. I'm going to do that. When you don't act on it, the soul is not going to send you more opportunities to act on your passion, because you're not acting on what it's already sent you. That would be pointless. You have to act on it to start the ball rolling, to start the dialogue between you to become more fluid. When you are willing to act on it, it sends you more opportunities. Synchronicity comes in and sends you more opportunities to act on your passion, and it builds and builds and builds. Now, you have to understand, a lot of people find this a little bit confusing, because when we say act on your passion, Bashar doesn't mean that you have to be jumping up and down with your hair on fire, running around like crazy. He simply means it's what feels correct to you to do, that is true for you at this moment, that sings to your heart, that sings to your soul. It could be meditating. It could be something very peaceful and calm, but it's what feels right for you to do next. And the idea is it can start very small. It doesn't have to be big projects or life-spanning careers. When he talks about acting on your passion, he means look around at all the choices you have on a daily basis. Simple things. You could take a walk, you could have a conversation with someone, you could eat a meal, you could watch a movie, you could read a book, etc., etc. Just pick the one that sings to you the most, that has the most attractiveness, even if it's just the tiniest bit more than any other choice that you have the ability to do something about, to take an action on. And do that one first. See where it leads you. When you're done with that, when the excitement wanes, or you have no ability to take further action, look for the next thing that has more excitement, that you have the ability to act on than anything else, and act on it next. Synchronicity is the organizing principle of our lives. It shows us that everything is connected, and it brings you things in the order in which you need to do them. So by bringing it with more excitement than anything else, it's telling you, do this first. When you're done with that, do this next. When you're done with that, do this next. And if you keep on doing that, you are following your passion, even if it's on a simplistic level. But very often when you do that, it starts to build and it starts to become bigger, and more synchronous events happen that draw you into circumstances where you go, oh, now I can do this bigger thing. Now I can do this bigger thing. And now this is representative of my passion, and it grows. And it also supports you in life, because it would be pointless to be acting on your passion if it didn't somehow support you to allow you to keep acting on your passion. Now, there are many forms of support. I'm not just talking about money, because there are many forms of abundance. Synchronicity is one of those forms. Being given a gift is one of those forms. Having something to trade is one of those forms. Imagination is one of those forms. Communication is one of those forms. All these different forms of abundance can allow you to find the path that works for you, so that whatever forms of abundance have to be there to help you will be there. But it doesn't mean that only one form will come. Sometimes a little bit of this, a little bit of that, and a little bit more of this will come together to form the 100% abundance that you need to be able to keep moving forward on your passion. So when we start assuming, well, I don't have enough money to do that, I don't have enough of this to do that, we're actually shortchanging ourselves, no pun intended, by closing the doors through which other forms of support and abundance could come to allow us to move forward. So we have to allow all forms of abundance to be equally valid in order for them to all work together to give us what we need to continue to move forward on our path. So it really is an art form, but it's also a very practical understanding of how things actually work energetically in physical reality.
Wow, that is just so inspiring. Thank you so much. This is truly my cup of tea. Now, I would love to speak with you for hours, but we have to wrap up soon. Now, I have some general questions that I ask all my guests. And the first one is, what is self-love to you, Daryl Anka?
Well, it's recognizing that you are a valuable and valid aspect of all that is. It's treating yourself with that respect. It's allowing you to express the same unconditional love to yourself that all that is supports you in. As I said, it's unconditionally supportive. So it's simply recognizing that you are a reflection of that. And why shouldn't you give yourself the same benefit of the doubt, the same respect, the same unconditional love? It helps you function as a being.
And what is the deeper meaning of life from your perspective?
The irony, I know this sounds weird, the irony of the deeper meaning of life is that life is meaningless. You give it meaning. You're designed to give it meaning. And the meaning you give it determines how you experience it. So when I say life is meaningless, I don't mean it's without value. I mean it doesn't have built-in meaning. It doesn't automatically come with built-in meaning. Oh, this means that. No, You tell it that it means that. You decide that it means that. So it's the meaning you give it that determines how you experience it. So you give life meaning. That's what we're designed to do.
Hmm. Now, Daryl, tell us, what are you most excited about now, and how can people connect with you and work with you and follow
Sure.
you? I'm sure many want to learn more.
Sure. I mean, for anything that's Bashar related, they can go to bashar.org, BASHAR.org. For things that I'm doing, they can go to darrylanka.com, DARRYLANKA.com, because I've written books and done movies, and they can find out all about that there. Or they can go to boggledescaperooms.com, because my wife and I operate and own an escape room here in Los Angeles. So BOGGLED, boggledescaperooms.com. Also, we do monthly Zoom events at Bashar.org, where Bashar will talk and answer questions on Zoom. And so those events, you can find out all about the schedule for that. I will also be, we just came back from Sedona doing an event there. I'll be in Sedona again in January for the Channel Panel event. You can find out about that at thechannelpanel.com. So all those places you can find out what I'm doing, what Bashar is doing, and also access a lot of the information that Bashar has delivered in recordings over several years. So that's where they can go to find out stuff.
Wonderful. Thank you so much for this opportunity. And thank you for coming to the show on Wisdom from North and for your amazing, inspiring work. Thank you.
All right. Well, thank you for making this platform available, because that's how information is best shared. So I thank you for the work that you're doing and allowing me to be a part of it today. Thanks.